Thanks for joining us today. We will be kicking things off here in a couple minutes. We're getting a few people rolling in. As we do, feel free to drop in the chat where you're from, where you are in the world today. I'm based out of Tampa, Florida. It's a typical hot, steamy summer day here in Florida. Matthew, you're joining us. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Portugal today.
Excellent. I know where I'd rather be right now. Great. Well, we'll give it one more minute. We've got a few more people joining. Thanks for getting in here, team. I'll give it 30 more seconds and then we'll get started. Oh, James, thanks for letting us know that the chat is disabled. That may be a setting due to marketing. So yeah, feel free to drop your comments in the Q&A like James did. Appreciate you giving us a heads up there. But James Knowles joining us from Louisiana, so appreciate that. Anyone else want to drop where they're joining from today? That'd be great. Just pop it in that Q&A. Okay, we're going to get things going. We've got everyone seems to be joining us now. So let's get started. Chattanooga, Dennis, St. Louis, Arkansas, Italy. Wow, we've got a couple of Europeans on the line. This is awesome. Excellent. Well, let's get things going, guys. I know we wanted to kick things off and learn a little bit about how we can take AI within an MSP beyond time savings, beyond that ROI time savings that obviously we're all familiar with when we're implementing AI and automation. That's going to be the theme today is how we get more than just that time savings from an ROI perspective. I'm fortunate enough to be joined today with one of our peer power users, Matthew Nikravesh, the CEO and co-founder of Solaris Technologies. Matthew's joining us all the way from Portugal today, but that's not where you're usually from, Matthew. Why don't you give us a bit of an introduction and then we'll get started. Matthew, I don't know if your audio is coming through. I can't hear you. No. Bit of a technical difficulty.
Hey, James, I think I'm back. As soon as you started sharing, I got kicked out, but I'm back again.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks again, Matthew, for joining us. I was just saying you'd join us all the way from Portugal. So if you'd like to give a bit of an introduction, we can get things started.
Sure. My name is Matthew Nikravesh. I'm CEO of Solaris Technologies. We are a New York City-based managed services provider, and we've been working with PIA for nearly 2 years now on our journey with RPA and AI and trying to perfect our service offering with their tool stack.
Fantastic. And again, thank you for joining us. We're excited to share some of your insights with the wider community. So a little bit of background about myself. James Allen, for those of you who don't know, I'm the Executive Vice President here at PIA, and I've been around since inception. My background actually stems from the MSP in Australia, Virtual IT Group, where PIA was born out of. So one of the largest MSPs in Australia now. I was employee roughly around number 20 back there, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of their growth journey. So I led sales and growth there for a number of years, and really what we saw in our accelerated growth was how we could win more business and retain our current clients by implementing AI and automation. And these are the sorts of things that I want to share with everyone on the call today, how we can win more business and take on more clients. So with that, that said, let's get into it. So why are we here today? So as I touched on, we want to take this beyond time savings. We want to put more money in your bank account. So if you're a seller at an MSP, so a sales rep or an account manager or a business owner in an MSP, this is definitely a webinar for you. We want to get your customers buying from you, reduce our churn rates, and have customers for life. So we want to eradicate those fence sitters and close deals fast. We're all too familiar with those clients that are trying to make a decision, evaluating, and just go into that analysis paralysis. We want to stop that scrutiny, and make your product a must-have. So how do we differentiate ourselves as MSPs out there? I know when I was selling MSP services, a classic line was, we're big enough to get the job done, but we're small enough to care, and we laugh about it. I've used that myself. So we want to take it beyond there. So we also want to show you how to close some big deals and also boost revenue and increase business valuation. So that's the premise of why we're here today, guys. So if you're interested in that, in at least one of those things, I'd love to get a yes from you, or a thumbs up if in the reactions if the chat's not working and you don't get into the QA. Excellent, excellent. There we go. All right. So what are some of the big MSP killers? So I know when I was running sales and growth at Virtual IT Group, I was also in charge of the sales team and the account management team. And that account management team, we had a metric that we were responsible for reporting, and that was churn. So I've been talking to a lot of MSPs over the last 6 months. I was actually in a ConnectWise Evolve community meeting last week with service delivery managers, and it was 50-50 on who was owning the churn metric. And the reason why it was 50-50, because a lot of the MSPs out there, that metric is owned by the account management team. And whenever we would lose a client at the MSP, I'd always conduct a loss interview with those outgoing clients, see what we could have done better and how can we learn to improve our services going forward. And 9 times out of 10, the feedback that we got, it wasn't that the account management team, was slow to get back to them, or they were, quoting the wrong things, or weren't skilled up. 9 times out of 10, it came back to service. So poor quality service, we're not hitting the resolutions that we needed to. And I had it spelled back to me by some MSPs recently. It was at death by 1,000 cuts. We ask for a terminated user, and you forgot to put it to decom the license, or we set up a new user and the first name dot last name was incorrect. So Matthew, I'd love to get you to weigh in on this and see, has that been your experience when you've had some outgoing clients? Have you done these loss reviews? And if so, is that resonating with you, or is it something else?
No, 100% on the money. Our COO frequently says, people don't leave their MSPs because their server was down or their network was down. They leave for all the little things that causes them pain and makes them double think if you're capable of handling it. So things like James said, new user creation, termination of users, ensuring the right applications are assigned, ensuring the right licensing is there. All those little things for onboarding and offboarding is what causes the most pain for the clients. And if you can automate that and get it right 100% of the time, it could save you a lot of accounts. More so the onboarding than the offboarding, because the onboarding is the first time you're making an impression with that new user, whether it's just a low-level user or another C-level person, and you get their email address wrong, doesn't set a good precedent of how you're going to be working with that person.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually used to call that period the honeymoon period. You know, the new clients come across to your MSP and they've left their existing MSP for all of the reasons that you just described. And if we can't get our, act together, it just starts that relationship off on rocky ground, and we're always playing catch up. So yeah, I think you nailed it there, Matthew.
Thanks.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about around what we just touched on in terms of winning new business and why clients choose another MSP, it really comes down to, those response times, having that relationship, and getting that confidence that an MSP, incoming MSP, is going to be able to handle their business. They're growing, they're sick and tired of those, death by a thousand cuts, and they're coming to you for something better, something more. And this couldn't be more true when we were winning business at Virtual IT Group. We would respond to a lot of tenders or RFPs and RFTs, and they all went in a very similar sort of fashion. You'd write your response, get shortlisted, and then there'd be a panel of, judges effectively that you'd have to rock up into. Everyone wore their suits, had their PowerPoint presentations, and told you how much better they were than the guy down the street. I've got a help desk with 50 people on it. I've got one that's got 60 people on it. At the end of the day, there wasn't too much differentiating every MSP from each other. But when we came to present, it was a very different presentation. We would actually demonstrate our help desk capabilities. We would demonstrate the tickets that Matthew's just touched on, a new user submission, because that's a big pain for these businesses out there. We would show it coming into the help desk, and then Pia going and automating that all the way to resolution. So that was a massive differentiator for us. And when I ask MSPs out there today who demonstrates their help desk, very few are today. So I would encourage any of our peer partners on the call today to have a think about what we can do in terms of winning new business, and how we can show, not just talk about, show those incoming partners how we are different. Matthew, do you want to add some flavor to that?
Yeah, so one of the things that James has encouraged us to show is our smart forms. So actually walking a potential client through what an onboarding or offboarding looks like, and we've tweaked our smart forms for both onboarding and termination significantly, with full integrations into our PSA, our RMM, and our third-party licensing, such as Microsoft. So when a user wants to submit a new user request form, you get the basics, right? First name, last name, email address, what distribution groups they should be in, etc. But we have it so dialed in that when they get to the distribution group list, they're able to get a pre-populated list from 365 that shows the available groups they can join, and just select them. When it gets them to the point of, what computer will this new user use, it's populating a list of available machines from the RMM, so they could choose one of those machines. Or if they don't have a machine for the new employee, they can simply request a new one, and then it prompts them to say, hey, are you looking for a laptop, a desktop? Do you need accessories? And it routes that right onto their account manager or the sales team. And then we can provide a quote for them to get that provisioned. And then lastly, in terms of Microsoft licensing specifically, if there's no available licensing, it can go ahead and purchase that licensing automatically. So when our techs go to handle this and close out the ticket, everything's been done from a licensing standpoint all the way to the user creation, the security groups, the distribution groups, and there's no real human intervention needed.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, Matthew. And I only wish that I had that capability back in virtual IT when I was showing it. It was very basic back then. We're talking, 4 or 5 years ago. We've added a lot more features and functionality, including smart forms, to the platform. But even at its infancy, we were able to win big accounts. 250 seat MS clients, 350. We won a 1,500 seat client. And like I said, I only wish we had smart forms to demonstrate to them now, because that has been a game changer for all of the reasons that you just described, plus more. We've got plenty of clients, partners doing very similar things that you are, and demonstrating the actual smart form in action. I love that.
Yeah.
Give us a thumbs up, guys, if anyone out there in the PE community is doing that today, or is this sparking some things that you're going to be doing going forward? I love
Well,
that.
while we're waiting on those to come in, one of my favorite things is on the termination form. It can be scheduled, so no one ever leaves at at a decent time. It's always lock this person out at 5 o'clock on a Friday or 6 o'clock on a Friday. We can now put it on a timer, and everyone can get on with their weekends, go grab a drink, go see their family, and this automatically will terminate the user, remove the license, change them to a shared mailbox or anything else that needs to happen without anyone from staff having to be around to take care of it.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's not only creating, freeing up time in that instance, but like you just touched on, that accuracy and consistency is key. If we can hit our SLAs, resolve our tickets effectively for our partners, why would they be going anywhere else? We're creating sticky partners. I was talking to an MSP recently that they missed that SLA of terminating a user by 18 minutes, and it was all hell to pay. So yeah, I love that you're doing that right now, Matthew.
Thanks.
So Matthew's given us a little bit of an insight into what AI and automation is doing at his business, but here's a couple of things for everyone on the call to consider. What if our tickets can be closed 50% faster? What if we can implement AI-powered triage into our business? We're automating troubleshooting and ticket resolution, and also, as Matthew just touched on, self-service resolution, your clients automating their own tickets and resolving their own tickets via the PS Smartforms portal. So I wanted to throw this one out there to the audience, or maybe Matthew might want to step in and field this one. What's stopping you from using AI at the moment? Is there anything that's holding us back? I know we've got a lot of peer partners currently on here, but if there's some people that aren't already embracing AI and automation, is there anything that's holding us back? And feel free to put that in the Q&A.
So, from my perspective, and what I hear from my peers is a lot of them are just afraid how their clients are going to react to potential data being up in the cloud or being analyzed by AI, and it's so new. There's no quote unquote acceptable use policy, things like that. They feel that some of their clients might be frightened by it, but I look at it the same way it was when the cloud started becoming prevalent, right? You still had a cluster of clients that were afraid of the cloud. My data is going to be up somewhere. I don't have access to it. I can't go give my server a hug if I'm lonely. Some clients want to know that their data is sitting 10 feet away in an IT room. But I think over time, people are going to be demanding this. It's not going to be optional anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, month on month, effectively, we're getting more educated. There's more use cases coming into the fore. And like you said, Matthew, I think, we're already seeing the younger generation is already just demanding this. It's just they just expect this to be part of the service.
All right. And one of the other things that we discussed was, this whole concept of self-service. I don't know if self-service is really the right word for it because one way or another, the client has to relay the information to you. It's basically, are they going to type all this new user information into an email, send your support team, and then your support team is manually going to handle it? Or will they just enter it into a smart form, maybe at 9 o'clock at night when they finally free up and have it automatically done? It's just, changing the mindset of, hey, instead of sending me an email to do this, just go to the smart form that's customized for your organization, enter the data, and it will automatically be taken care of at any time of the day.
Well, that's a good segue into where we're going to take things right now, Matthew. So what I wanted to, I guess, share with the community here is a little bit of a fanboy moment, as you can see here. If anyone's not familiar with this gentleman, this is Matt Dixon. So Matt Dixon's written a couple of, staple books for the sales community, such as The Challenger Sale, The Jolt Effect, Effortless Experience. And I had the privilege of meeting Matt Dixon at New Charter's event earlier this year. Do a lot of work with the New Charter team, and they brought Matthew to talk about a few things, but mainly around the client retention side of things, and a couple of his points that resonated. I wanted to share today with the team, and Matthew already touched on one of them. I'm going to kick us off with customer loyalty. Now, Matt shared a great story about the Wyndham Hotel around a hotel clerk that, went over and above. They really went out to delight the customer. And Matt Dixon, for anyone that's not aware, is a very data-driven analyst when he's talking about from a sales and customer retention perspective. And he did a survey with hundreds of businesses, SMBs, and just under 100,000 of their clients. It was 97,000 clients. And what he found when he did some of this research was pretty in stark contrast to what our perception was. What you're seeing here on the screen is an XY chart of a loyalty. So I think customer loyalty, longevity of a client, the more loyal, the more longer they're going to stay as a client, and the less loyal, they're going to be churning out, wreaking havoc online, bad Google reviews, all that sort of stuff. And then on the other axis, we've got our expectations being met. So on the far left side, we're not meeting expectations. So less loyal, low expectations being met, likely to churn out, give terrible reviews, all the way to exceeding customer expectations and going above and beyond. Now, the perception, as you can see here, is, to have a really loyal customer, we need to go up above and beyond all the time. But the data came back, it was actually very different. As soon as you start to meet customer expectations, they're happy and they're not really going to be going anywhere. And when I translate this into the MSP world, what are we doing with meeting expectations? Well, our biggest service is the help desk. And those expectations from a client of yours is whenever I submit a ticket, I want it to be done accurately, the first time, at speed. And if we're meeting those expectations, then guess what? I'm not going to be going anywhere. And that goes back to the conversation we had earlier around that death by 1,000 cuts. And when we're doing those loss reviews, it always stemmed back to that point there. Matthew, I'd love to get your take on that and see if this is correlating or resonating with any of the things that you're seeing in your business.
Yeah, 100%. The big driver for us in implementing RPA and AI is to provide better customer service for our clients. And that's really where we're going to win every time over other MSPs. Some of the things that we've done with PIA to make our customer service one step above is we have full integration into OpenAI where it's reading the tickets and it's providing our engineers troubleshooting steps right within our PSA. PIA is enabling our dispatch team to do simple things like reset a password because the little bot pops up in our PSA and says, hey, I can help you with this. And our dispatchers can click a mouse and say reset the password and help that customer instantaneously. And then lastly, we have a few things around reading ticket content for the sentiment of the ticket and also the severity of the ticket, which updates our PSA. So going into the ticket, the engineering team automatically knows, how severe it is and how the customer's feeling about it. And then lastly, which is probably my favorite, is our automatic dispatch. So we've created a matrix out with each of our engineers' skill sets and what they're able to do and where they're really strong at. And when a ticket comes in through PIA and our auto dispatch, it's finding the proper engineer to handle the ticket and it's finding the proper time slot where they can handle it. And it will give us feedback. For example, Mike or Paul can take this ticket, but only Mike is available at 1 p.m., which is the time the customer asked us to work on this ticket, and it'll automatically assign it to Mike, and it corresponds and informs the client of this. So all of that's done automatically with no one on my staff having to push a button to even get this done.
I love that. Very effortless. What an effortless experience that you guys have created there. And if anyone wants, any of our peer partners want more details of what Matthew and the team have done, jump in our Discord community, and there'll be a bunch of information there where your automation engineer, Matthew, the same name, funnily enough, is in there constantly sharing all the different things that he's done. I remember back to DattoCon in Miami, I think it was last year, and Matthew came up to the booth all excited with his laptop in hand. He said, James, look what I've done to your triage automation. He opens up all the code that he's pulled apart, put back together, and showed me some of the stuff that you've just touched on there. But sounds like he's even gone to another level since we met, which is awesome. I love to
Yeah.
see that. Yeah, because
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering. Oh,
yeah, go on. Sorry.
sorry. I was gonna say a lot of you are probably wondering, how do the clients feel about it? Do they know? Quite frankly, our AI bot's called Cody, and people have had full-fledged conversations with him, and they haven't realized. And one client who found out called me. She's like, "I feel so silly. I've been having a conversation with Cody, and I just found out he isn't real." So it's pretty good. No one's really called us out on it.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I was just going to add to that context as well, and say most people know Pia for our automations out of the box, which obviously generates great ROI straight away from a ticket resolution and efficiency gains perspective. But not a lot of us know us for the customization that you can do, like you just referred to there. So that's a great example. The second point that I wanted to touch on that I really want to get everyone to start to think about is around self-service. Now, Matthew, you talked about this earlier. This is another one of Matt Dixon's reports, or the research report that he did. He surveyed these hundreds of businesses, and the business owners, 85, nearly 90% of them were saying, no, our clients won't like this. It'll denigrate our service. They just love to pick up the phone and talk to our team, and so they can get their problems resolved. And when he actually surveyed those 97,000 end customers, it was indifferent. It was 50-50 whether they wanted self-service or not. And it actually went up in the younger generations, like we touched on before. Now, the caveat for this was as long as self-service worked. So I think we've all been on phone calls, listening to those automated trees which send us down those rabbit holes, and it just drops out. Frustrating as all hell. So the caveat is that self-service option really needs to work. Matthew, you touched on the smart forms. I'd love to get your feedback, the feedback from your clients since you've implemented those. Are they on board? Are they liking it, or are they a bit hesitant?
Clients love it. We have two different types of smart forms. The first one would be just a standard smart form, which is rolled out to all of our clients for basic user onboarding and offboarding. And then we have some clients that have other needs. They have line of business applications or other third-party integrations where they want a more robust smart form created. And to date, we've been just doing it for our current clients, but in the sales process, it's something we use to differentiate, and also another option we can give them to close the deal, right? Hey, you get our standard smart forms, but once you come on board, can we entice you with a custom smart form that will address all these other applications you may have? And those can be like, voice over IP or integration into a print management platform where the user has to be created. That way, it's one form for everything rather than just a basic form for user creation. So we use it to our benefit.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the more and more you start to roll this out, the more and more you're going to get some traction, and then that efficiency gain is just going to do that snowball effect. Would you agree with that?
100%. If my team never has to log into 365 to create a user, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I actually just had some feedback from one of our newer partners, and when we were showing them a bit of a demonstration about peer closing the tickets, one of the common misconceptions is, techs are going to freak out. They're going to, think that you're taking their jobs. But the reality is what he said back to me. This is Trevor. He said, I don't think anyone on my team woke up this morning and said, yes, like I can't wait to get into work and reset some passwords. So that sort of stuck with me, that one. It was great. One of the things, guys, I know there's a bunch of questions in the Q&A. We're going to get through a couple more slides, and then we're going to open this up and get to those questions. So appreciate you guys putting it in, popping it in there. Keep doing that. We've got a few more slides to get through, and then we're going to spend at least 15 minutes here going through the Q&A. All right, so we talked about what it looks like in action. For those of you who aren't Pia users already, pia.ai, go and check out the website. There's some links to some demos you can go and have a look at on our YouTube channel. You can talk to our team and get a personalized demonstration. But effectively, we're talking about taking a ticket from any point of entry into the ticketing system and resolving it with the technology that we've created. You know, automating the triage, routing, like Matthew said, automating the resolution of L1 tickets, giving your tickets what Ryan Barton at New Charter referred to as a max suit. I love that analogy. You know, our technicians are fighting a battle every day. And, you know, if I can drop a max suit on the battlefield that they can jump into, why the heck wouldn't I? And that's what that smart suggestion and co-intelligence is all about. And then predictive alerts, you know, getting our SLAs before there's any issues, you know, doing that automated resolution. All right, so we are getting into a bit of Q&A, Matthew. I wanted to get a little bit more information around some of the, I guess, some of the maybe challenges and what you've seen, some of the benefits from utilizing AI and automation. I know we touched on a few, and then I'm going to get into the team's questions. So to kick it off, you know, what were some of the challenges that you saw, you know, with traditional ticket intake before you started, you know, using Pia and smart forms?
I think the biggest issue that we had was just skinning our knees on simple things like creating a user. And my favorite example is, you know, every client has a different email format. You know, some first initial last name, some first name dot last name, some just first name. And we would skin our knees on this all the time where we just make a mistake because someone didn't look at the documentation that we had taken so much time to put together. And that always made us look bad. So that was probably one of the biggest drivers there, just automating things that can be automated so we don't make stupid mistakes.
Yeah, I used to call them coach killers, right? Just the little things, you know, that, you know, it just gives you that we're on a high, we're rocking and rolling, and then just a little thing can unwind it. You know, getting a phone call from a upset customer is never fun. Um, so what about some internal efficiencies now? Like were anything there like contributing to the customer effort, you know, like going back and forth, emails, you know, incomplete ticket information? Was any of this impacting on your SLAs and resolution times as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone on this call has probably had a customer email and say, my computer's not working or my email's not working. Well, if your email's not working, how did you send me one? And there's no details there, right? Now it's just this constant back and forth and trying to figure out exactly what they're talking about. And typically it's two, three, four emails before you actually get to what the actual problem is. Whereas, you know, with AI and, you know, building these things out, you can likely get these answers quicker and stop having this back and forth with the client, which is just a time drain. The other thing that was a big time saver internally for us was the ability to allow our dispatch team, who's not technical, be able to do urgent requests like reset a password because the ticket just prompts them. It says, "Hey, I think this is a password reset ticket. Can I help you with that?" And just being able to give someone who typically answers phones and create tickets the ability to do that makes us look great and it makes the employee feel good about themselves because they've been able to help a customer in record time.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on a couple of things there, but have you been able to quantify those results, like faster resolution times, you know, lower volume or fewer escalations? Has any of that been able to be quantified?
Yeah, absolutely. So our resolution times on those level one tickets have definitely gotten better. And I think I shared some metrics with you, you know, of approximately in a quarter, 1,800 tickets that we identified that PIA can handle for us. 88% of them we were able to put through PIA and get to a closed status. So we have a pretty high ROI from our investment in PIA to be able to, just get these tickets moving at a quicker pace. And more important than the speed is the accuracy, being able to do them right the first time.
Well, and that's what we're talking about, going beyond the time savings is that meeting expectations, what Matt Dixon talked about. So now that, we're not skinning our knees, we're not slipping up on the first name dot last names or forgetting to terminate a user. How have you seen that impact on customer loyalty? Like, have you seen an increase in CSAT or a reduction in churn? Like, has that come across now?
It absolutely is. Churn has been reduced, but CSAT has dramatically increased, not only from a score level, but also the number of surveys that people are filling out. Um, I think people are overall impressed by some of the things that we've been able to achieve with PIA, especially those lower level tickets that we're able to do in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, and that's feedback pretty consistently that we're getting, and like I said, it's the things that we just know should be gotten rid of off the desk. Onboardings and offboardings, password resets. This stuff should just be done and not thought too much about. So I'm glad that you're getting those results. Now you touched on self-service. So from a self-service perspective, what does this mean from your team's scalability and also the ability to focus on more complex issues and tasks? Have you seen a change or a transformation on that aspect of the business?
So it allows our techs to, focus on other things related to a new user setup. If smart forms used, then the user accounts created, they're added to the right security groups, the right distribution groups, the licensing is purchased. That automatically eliminates, call it a level one tech that needs to touch it, and eliminates someone from procurement having to touch the licensing portion. So right there, we have significant, and with that, be working on, maybe setting up that new computer that was purchased for that employee, or, getting ready together a welcome package for them or whatever else that they need to do to ensure that this new user is set up properly, because they're saving, 10, 15 minutes on each one for just the provisioning of the accounts.
Yeah, perfect. And by allowing them to go and do this more, like do more high payoff skill sets or high payoff tasks, I'm sure they're not freaking out about AI coming to take their job. What has it meant to your techs? Have they, had that impression at the start, or are they going through it, or where's their head at with AI and this automation on the help desk?
So initially, it was a slow ramp time. People didn't want to use it, maybe because they just didn't feel comfortable with it. I don't think anyone was worried that their job was on the line, really, because of
Uh-huh.
it. But it took some time for adoption. We got creative in the ways we did it. We integrated it with Kruhu, which is our CSAT tool, and also internal competition. So we built out monthly competitions around it for people, encourage people to take advantage of it, and we awarded folks based on percent utilized and how many tickets that they were using it on. But in addition to that, it's helped with employees, because as you said earlier, no one gets excited to come and enter a user into 365 every morning and configure those permissions. It's enabling them to do things that they are more interested in and things that they can learn from.
Fantastic. I love to hear that, Matt. All right, let's keep moving because I want to get to these questions. But Matthew, I put this one up there. I actually had a presentation earlier in this year. I still think 2025 is the year. If you're going to say something, to your MSP peers, Matthew, what's your message for people that are thinking about AI, thinking about automation? Are you in line with this comment around, we've got 12 months before it just becomes the standard? Or do you think it's still very fringe? What's your impact, or what's your thoughts on this, and what's your message to the community?
Well, I don't know if it's 12 months. I feel like it might be longer than that, but I do think it's gonna hinder your ability to sign up new accounts if you don't have a tool around AI and RPA. You're going to maintain status quo. Your current clients are likely going to stay with you. You might lose a couple here and there, but being able to add new clients, that's where it's really going to become a hindrance, because you're going to have organizations like mine and other ones that are using PIA and using it to its full capabilities, pitching the same business. And if everything else is equal, why wouldn't they go with an organization that's forward thinking, has the next generation of technology, and can speak about AI and RPA? I think it just gives you that edge over everyone else out there in the market.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And more we're seeing partners reflect that same sentiment. It's a really great differentiator in market. Like I said earlier, gone are the days when we can get away with saying we're big enough to get the job done, but we're small enough to care still. We need to separate ourselves from the competition.
Right. And I
All
think
right.
the answer is not necessarily waiting for your PSA company to roll it out either. A lot of the PSAs are, dabbling with this. They keep saying it's coming, it's coming. But, PIA's been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years now. They are, ahead by that many years in their technology and what they can do. There's no other path forward with this that I see that would be extremely valuable for a MSP to go with. If you go to your, PSA vendor for this, they're likely 2 to 3 years behind where PIA is right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the feedback that we're getting as well. So I appreciate that sentiment. Matthew, I appreciate your insights. I do want to open it up now to the floor. So we got a bunch of questions that I want to get through before we hit the top of this hour. I've left us at least 15 minutes, like I said. So I'm going to start with Nick. Nick, you mentioned, what was your client's reactions to smart forms? Did they like it? And have you used AI auto reply at all? So that one's one for you, Matthew. I think you
So
answered the question around did they like the smart forms, but the AI auto reply, that's a good question. Have you turned that on? And maybe if the answer is yes, then tell us a little bit about it. If the answer is no, then I can give some insights around what that is.
yeah. So I'll be honest, I don't know if we have AI auto reply on or not, but in regards to smart forms, the clients that have custom smart forms implemented for them, they don't like it. They love it. I mean, what more could you want? They have to type that information in and make these selections anyway. Why not put it in a clearly defined form where you can't leave anything to chance? You're forced to enter answers where an answer is required, and it's fully automated. And quite frankly, they can do it whenever they want, whether it's 6 a.m., at noon, or at midnight. They could just take care of it at their convenience. So, yes, they absolutely love it. And I think it's the biggest differentiator in the sales process to be able to show this and show them exactly how it works.
I love that. And for our peer partners that have smart forms activated and not sure about AI auto start, have a chat to your partner success manager or SE. There's also, for those of you who aren't peer partners, go onto our YouTube channel. There's a great webinar that our CTO and one of our product specialists, Thomas, ran a couple of months ago on AI auto start and AI triage. But really, in brief, what that function of the platform is if a client of yours submits a ticket the old way, just sends an email in saying, hey, I want to set up a new user, Mary Jane on Friday at 6 o'clock, then P is smart enough, the AI is going to read that ticket, send you out a email with a link to that smart form. So that Matthew just talked to, they'll go in, fill the smart form in and complete it exactly as Matthew talked about there. The whole idea is to build up the education and adoption of the smart forms, because like Matthew said, why would you want it to come in any other way? Dennis has put a comment in there earlier around some of the concerns. Many help desk managers have concerns with AI, confidence in solutions. Our experience comes from providing the reliability of automation platforms and how we can bolster the AI confidence levels. I'll take that one as a comment, but I think it marries into what Matthew was talking about earlier around other vendors and providers out there. Grant asked a question around compliance. So is this fully compliant for customers who adhere to frameworks such as NIST 800-171, Rev 23, HIPAA, CMMC 2 level 2? So I can take that one, Matthew. So on our website, we've got our list of security commitments and attestations there, Grant. But really quickly, SOC 2, Type 2 compliant, ISO 27001K, HIPAA, GDPR. There are current certifications and attestations, and we're always driving forward to do more. We've got a full-time CISO and staff on staff, and a team backing them as well. Okay, Glenn, we've got a question here. How did they get it to where it checks to see if a tech is available and assigns the ticket for that time slot? Matthew, that's one for you. So Matthew's built some custom pieces that bolt on to PIA using the orchestration platform that's available to our partners. Do you want to talk to that one, Matthew, and how PIA assigns it to the technicians at the time slot?
Yeah. So Glenn, I can't get very technical about it, but I'm happy to put you in touch with my guy who builds this out. But basically, it's looking at ConnectWise to see what that technician's availability is. And it's also cross-referencing, call it a matrix, where we have each of our engineers listed and their certifications and their specialties when it comes to technology. So someone may have, voice over IP, they may have managed security, and they may have, virtual desktops. And when a ticket comes in and identifies it as a virtual desktop ticket, it's automatically going to try to assign it to that technician. And based on the logic that's built in, if that person is not available, it will find the next best person to handle that. Again, if you want more information, I'm happy to put you in touch. Just get a hold of James and he'll get us connected.
Excellent. I appreciate that, Matthew. And Glenn, if you are a PIA partner, jump onto that Discord channel and you'll be able to find some more information there. But I can connect you directly with Matthew's whiz kid, I call him, Matthew, the automation engineer. So that's great. We're moving on. If there's a couple more questions left, so feel free, if there's some out there burning, put them in there. We'll get to them. Chris has asked a question around ticket assignment based on availability. Yep, that's what Matthew just covered then. So he's been asking about this. Sounds like a current PIA partner. So again, Chris, reach out. We can put you in touch and talk about how we can get that up in your tenant as well. And Glenn, we've got another question here around, has there been any issues with all the customizations when PIA gets updated? So Matthew, I'll throw it over to you. I know you're not technical or probably getting involved there, but if you've got a response, feel free to share it. Otherwise, I can give the PIA response.
So I feel like if there was a problem with customizations that got updated, I would have heard about it because people would be losing their minds. So I have not heard of one to date, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It could just be that my team is on it and they're handling it real time. But I'm pretty confident we haven't had any issues when PIA gets updated. It's my understanding there's updates happening to PIA all the time, and nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, perfect. And I'll just add on to what Matthew's just touched on there. Anything that you build in the PIA platform, in your either the activities, the workflows, or the forms, that's something that's maintained and versioned and controlled and updated by yourselves. That's not part of PIA's responsibility. What we do is maintain the platform and all of our automations that we build and version and maintain. Now, the beautiful thing about that relationship is, rather than copying and pasting any of our automations into sandboxes, what the bulk of our partners do, and the team from Solaris as well, is they'll use our extension points at the start, the middle, or at the end of our automations that we've built, and they'll bolt on their piece that they've customized. And when we're updating all of those extension points as well. So there's no issues or challenges with that interconnectability. Appreciate the question, Glenn. That looks like all of the questions in the Q&A we've gotten to. So I might throw it over, Matthew, if you've got any final thoughts. The conversation I think was great around, taking that ROI from beyond just time savings and efficiency to winning more business and retaining clients for longer. Any other final thoughts that you'd like to share with the community?
No real final thoughts, but I just want to take a moment to address what Dennis had said. And correct me if I'm wrong, James, but with Pia, you can certainly put it in like a listening mode where it's looking at these tickets and providing the feedback around how it would resolve it. Maybe that's a way that you can get your team and your help desk managers to become more comfortable with these AI solutions and what Pia can do for them. So it doesn't necessarily need to implement it, but you could basically see an output of how it would handle it if it was actually turned on live. Did I get that right, James?
Yeah, you did. So we've got simulation mode, which is exactly that. So we can see what the AI triage is going to do if it is turned on. And then there's also another piece of that puzzle, which is the adoption report. So with the adoption report, you can see all the suggestions that Pia would have made to the technicians to go and execute and automate the ticket resolution versus the ones that they actually did use Pia for. So again, there's two great methods of like to get some insights out of the platform to drive adoption and confidence throughout the team.
Right. And if you combine that with, some contest internally, I'm confident that you can get your help desk managers and your staff really to adopt the product and everything AI can do for your MSP.
Excellent. Well, look, Matthew, I really want to extend our appreciation and thanks. Thanks for joining us all the way from Portugal. Like I said at the start, I know where I'd rather be right now, having a great time over there with you and sipping on some native Porto. Appreciate the time. I appreciate everyone for jumping on and sharing your time with us and the questions that everyone submitted and the engagement. This has been recorded, and you'll all get copies of this recording in the next couple of days. And if anyone needs to learn more, pia.ai, or you can obviously snap the QR code on the screen now to talk further. And for all of our peer partners, I'm excited for you guys to take this to a whole nother level and win more business and retain more clients. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.